I feel strongly that childhood lasts longer and longer and longer as time goes on. So, like, what age do you feel like childhood was done for you?
12.
Welcome to Backtracking, the show where two old friends take a second listen to influential bands' catalogs track by track. I am J. William Hall.
And I'm Dan Fiden. We're taking this journey together, providing context both historical and personal on some legendary bands. For our second season, we have selected none other than American Music Club. J. William Hall, we are here once again, but this is an interesting and especially special episode.
It is. It's with a sense of bittersweetness.
Yeah.
You might say that I realize we're at the final, to date, American Music Club full-length album.
That's
right.
The
Golden Age.
Yeah, we're covering the Golden Age this week, and this is it. I mean, unless they release something in the next couple of weeks, which I'd be very surprised about, we are wrapping up the season.
Yeah, Christmas is coming up. Maybe they're gonna pull the old Christmas box set. They're just gonna drop it like Christmas Eve. Boom.
That'll be late breaking news, special episode. No. They'll be relying on us to publicize it, which is certain to sell tens of copies.
I'm sorry to say, though, that I don't work on Christmas. I don't work on holidays.
That's right. You take those. You know what? If you want J. William Hall to work on a holiday, you got to talk to his union rep.
That's right.
That's right. All right. So the Golden Age, J. William Hall. As we've talked about endlessly. Now, we did a little kind of a weird chronological choice. It was my fault. I know you didn't like it, but I wanted to end the season on an American Music Club album, and the only way to do that would have been to get through all of Eitzel's solo career and then circle back to the final American Music Club album, which was, of course, released in 2008.
Dan, I know your intentions were good. I know they were good, but, we're learning as we go, right? We're not too old to learn.
That's true.
And I think what you learned is you never stray from the chronology.
Really? Is that true?
Never stray from the chronology. It's like the story with the time machine where he goes back and it's like, don't go off the path, and he steps on the butterfly and that causes the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah. I don't know that story. I don't remember that story. What story was that?
I forget. It's some short story I read along the way.
Okay.
But so what has happened here? What has happened? Yeah. It's not. I wouldn't label it a tragedy. I would label it a travesty against American Music Club research. Because we went out of order. We skipped the Golden Age on our initial chronological run through. We skipped ahead to all of the Mark Eitzel solo releases that have come in its wake. And some of those solo releases had alternate versions of songs originally released on the Golden Age.
Yeah.
And so it created a strange effect for me as I listened to this album because, I had the solo versions in my head.
Yeah.
And sometimes my initial reaction on hearing the full band version wasn't what I expected. And so my first response was, I don't know if I like this.
Yeah.
I'm happy to report to you and to all of our listeners that my attitude changed significantly upon subsequent backtrackings.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, this album, I think neither of us had ever heard that, or I had never heard this album.
I had never heard it.
Never heard it either, and I really did not know what to expect. like you, I had heard some of these songs as we backtracked some of the later Eitzel solo albums. More than anything, though, I went into it knowing that this album came first. And so it introduced a lot of questions for me, primarily questions about, gosh, I wonder why he decided to do another version of Song X or Song Y later on a solo studio album. We're going to get into that when we do the track by track, but I feel like it's time right now to dig into the basics of this album, to stop beating around the bush and to dive in. We've got plenty of work to do today. So the Golden Age, the label, another one on Merge Records. There was some kind of relationship with Cooking Vinyl as well here, but I didn't know exactly what it was. There were some releases of this album that appeared on Cooking Vinyl. Strangely, none of them vinyl versions. There was no vinyl version of this album released.
To date, there has been no vinyl version of this album. Is that correct?
That's what seems to be. Yeah, that seems to be what I found on Discogs anyway. So if we're gonna believe the people at Discogs, no vinyl version.
That's crowdsourced. That's the people. That's not the man. That's the people.
And the people have never been wrong.
It's true. Look at Wikipedia. Always right.
So this released on February 19th, 2008. So we're coming up on 20 years. Between the release date and today.
Perfect time for a 20th anniversary vinyl release. Some label out there somewheres.
Yeah, that's right. And maybe a third disc with the episodes of Backtracking on it so people can...
As you listen to the album, you also listen to the backtracking. You listen to us talking about the song you're listening to.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a terrific idea. And... Mr. Eitzel, the rest of the gang, why don't we just, get in touch? We'll make that happen. So the album is 55 minutes and 4 seconds long.
Yeah. Yes, long album. This is a CD age album. This,
Definitely
no more
is.
of this, 20 minutes per side, 45 minutes per. No, this is the CD age, people. We are now expanding the albums. We're going an hour. We're going 70 minutes. Some people push it to 80.
Yeah. So how many tracks on this album? I believe 14 tracks on this album? So it definitely is packed.
I counted Lucky 13. Lucky
13. Okay, but it's a pretty well-packed album.
Yes.
Before we get into how packed it is, before we get into the production, the band, all of that, I want to deal with the cover because that's what Michael subscribes to the Patreon for. It is for us to talk about the covers.
Ever since he had his little freak out about us talking about the cover of Engine, I believe it was, he's secretly been tuning back in week after week.
Yeah.
He wants to hear the 10-minute breakdown of the album cover because he's addicted to it. He loves it.
Yeah.
That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah. And he just mutters under these motherfuckers talking about the cover again. God damn it.
Just get to
But I want to get into this cover. So the photograph, Mark Holthusen again. Mark Holthusen, who later took the photograph that appeared on the cover of Eitzel's solo record, Hey Mr. Ferryman, but he didn't do the work alone on this one. He collaborated with John McCusker and Maggie Frost, both of whom, from what I can tell, are staff designers at Merge.
Okay. Now, as I recall, I think they kind of were involved in the Hey Mr. Ferryman.
Was it the same? I don't remember if those two were.
I feel like someone from Merge was credited with something, but
it could have been, but it is a very unusual cover for the band.
Yes,
there are a number of things that are notable about this cover that I want to discuss before we just talk about what our reaction was to it. So I think the first thing is this is, as far as I can remember, the only kind of studio posed photograph of the band that's been taken in their entire career. And what I mean by studio posed photograph is they're not wearing street clothes. They're dressed in costume. There is a little bit of a set that they're kind of on or in. In this case, they're dressed as essentially kind of 1700s, 1800s sailors. And they're in a boat. And there are props and things, right? Very unusual for the band. I cannot think of a single photograph of the band throughout the rest of their career that isn't kind of a candid photograph.
Yeah, the thing that I was wondering about looking at that, and Mr. Holthusen. Is this coming from a theater world? A little bit. I don't.
It is.
Did we?
It's definitely theatrical, but I don't know if Holthusen comes from a theater world. I do remember. You know what? Why don't you continue, and I'll do a little.
Okay, so
I'll check with the research staff.
I think it was starting in this kind of era, is when Eitzel began collaborating with that theater director. That they did a play called Marine Parade.
Yeah. Okay.
Over in England, it was set in Brighton, and I don't know the theater world at all, basically. But from an article that I read, I gleaned that this director was kind of like he's a name in the theater world in England, and so. Because there was one album that had a song on it called like Marine Parade Intro, and we were like, what does that mean? And we didn't know at the time that we backtracked the episode, but what it meant was that was the play that Eitzel was collaborating with this guy and writing songs for. And so somehow this week, thinking about all of that, I was on YouTube and I put Marine Parade, and a performance of the actual play came up that somebody videotaped. And it's like, this is a, off Broadway looking kind of production, but like the play opens and they're singing I Live in This Place. Like the people, yes, and I was just like, and tried to skip through and find the other songs, but I didn't watch the whole thing. But so anyway, all of this is to say, I think Eitzel was interfacing with the theater world, during this part of his career. And so I wonder is it possible that Mr. Holthusen came from that world? And so, when they were like, we're going to do this cover, they staged it like this, it looks like, it doesn't look like, but it evokes like Washington crossing the Delaware, kind of vibe to it. Except it looks like, the attack went horribly and these are the survivors. Voodie's in the water, like with a life raft around him,
Yeah, it's all right. So I was able to check with the research staff. Holthusen does appear to have done some theater kind of production design work, in particular for Roger Waters at one point, who put on this is not a Pink Floyd related thing, some stage production that he did, but he also seems to do a lot of like installation art, lots of commercial photography. So I think he's a man of many talents. Now, I think one of the most interesting things about this cover, really confounding actually, is that one of the four band members appears on the cover proper. And that is Sean Hoffman, who is the bass player who joins the band for the first time on this album. Right. I think he has an interesting face, right? Like it isn't as though having him on the cover is unappealing in some way, but for an American Music Club fan, he is not the person if there's going to be a single person depicted on the cover, you would certainly expect it to be Eitzel, and if not Eitzel, Voodie, right?
Yeah, the weirdest thing for me was that even though I had not listened to this album before Backtracking, I was aware of it, and I had seen the cover, in passing, and I thought that was Danny Pearson for until somehow during this season when I was doing a little research or whatever, and it was oh wait, Danny wasn't even in the band for this album. So yes, you are correct. I think it's weird that of all of the AMC members over the years, the one member who gets the album cover is Sean Hoffman just brought in on this album.
That's right. And Sean Hoffman. Well, go ahead.
I also didn't realize that it was you fold the cover out and it's the whole band. Yeah. But it's if they were going to do that, maybe they should have arranged the people differently or something. I don't know.
I think we're probably getting into a little bit of how we feel about this cover, and let's just get into it. Okay. When you look at the entire folded out photograph, I love it. Mm-hmm. I think it is. I think it's compelling. I actually think it's a very they're lovely the guys look cool in them, actually.
Yeah.
But it also is kind of funny because the scenario is kind of funny. It's evocative in a very strong way for me. I think it's a great photo of Eitzel. For some reason, I just think this is a very good photo of Eitzel. But I really like this photo. I just really dislike that they chose to kind of crop the photo and only include someone in the band who just was in the band for this album.
Yeah.
So I just think that's strange. If you didn't know the band at all, I guess it wouldn't really matter. But I don't think that a lot of people who didn't know the band at all probably bought this record.
I'm trying to find the. I'm trying to look at the
full
photos again. Well, I guess for me it would have made more sense maybe to have those inner photos of the band. I can't find them right now, but
the inner photos are really good as well.
The individual portraits, put the 4 portraits on the cover or whatever. But anyway, strange choice, I guess, but the photo itself is cool, and the way that they're dressed up and looking, and I think it's well done, and it's very different than any previous American Music Club kind of thing. I mean, I guess during Mercury and San Francisco, they were trying to kind of slap some cool on the guys in the album, the inner album design and the band photos and whatever, but never anything quite like this,
Yeah,
I
know. Yeah, listen, it's an interesting, strange choice, I think, for the photo, but if you have an opportunity, a good place to see the entire kind of set of photographs here is on Discogs. If you go into the Merge Records CD release page, it has the entire CD in fold, which includes all of the photos. So basically what we've got is the cropped photo that features the new bass player on the cover. So that's Sean Hoffman. And then you've got the back cover, which is just an empty lifeboat in front of a very stormy gray, quite lovely sea. It shows you all the pages of the lyrics, and then there is a set of portraits that were taken in a similar style, although not the same. I don't think
kind of this old timey looking, early 1900s looking photo style, but evocatively lit and colored.
Yeah, but if you go all the way to the back, you see the kind of folded out full photo that shows the complete band. Voodie's in the water with the life ring, and then you've got Dave Trumfio, the drummer, on the left, just kind of looking off into the distance. You've got Eitzel in the center. Quite a good photo of him, and then you've got Sean Hoffman kind of in the front of the boat with a what is that called? A
telescope.
Telescope, yeah, the single eye telescope thing that they would use on boats. Holding boats. One of those. Yeah. Really a lovely photo of the whole band. I just think that should have been the cover. They should have figured out how to fit that one on. But well,
they fooled me for decades thinking it was Danny Pearson.
Yeah. So why don't we dovetail this right into the discussion of the band, because we're already talking about it. So the band for this album, it's a 4-piece. It's Eitzel and Voodie plus 2 new players that individually had done a little bit of touring with them and individually showed up on some of the random kind of live albums and things that you can find in the Bandcamp. But 2 players, neither of whom are tremendously well known, and frankly are not don't appear to be tremendously busy session players. You've got Steve Hoffman. Now, Steve Hoffman's playing bass. He's a multi-instrumentalist, but he's playing bass here.
Sean Hoffman.
I'm sorry. Sean Hoffman. Seems to be an LA-based musician. Now, one thing, J. William Hall, that I thought was interesting is Sean Hoffman, in addition to doing studio work, he does a lot of commercial music work. And has been particularly busy working in the world of video games.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, and actually did quite a bit of work for a company that makes kind of puzzle and kind of puzzle and board type games for older folks that. A company called Big Fish Games that, I'm very, very familiar with and know lots of folks who work there. And gosh, Sean Hoffman, probably 1 degree of separation from many of my friends who were at Big Fish over the years. I thought that was kind of interesting. But my guess is they just kind of found him through the producer of the album, who we'll get to in a minute. No?
Wrong.
Okay, correct me.
So here's what was going on. I did the research. I did the deep dive Googling that got me some answers. The AI was working overtime. The steam
I love
was
it.
Pumping. The water wheels were raging. Rivers were anyway.
Yeah.
I found some articles about the album. So what was going on was this. So Love Songs for Patriots.
Yep.
I come to learn that like Voodie's involvement in that album was he basically just kind of like came in for a few days. All of the tracks were basically done. He just furiously laid down some parts here and there and then was out. He wasn't really a part of the writing and the, kind of early stages of the album. And the reason was because he was living in L.A. He had moved to L.A. and the rest of the band was still based in San Francisco. And so sometime between that album and this album, Eitzel really wanted to work with Voodie, and he wanted to go down to L.A. to do it. And Danny and Tim didn't want to do that, and one thing led to another, and basically Eitzel, relocated basically to LA to work on an album with Voodie, and Voodie in the meantime had started playing with Hoffman and Didelo.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. All right.
And they were in a band called the Larks, I believe.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so he had kind of just met those guys, and so they came through Voodie. He brought them in. I think the idea originally was Eitzel came down and him and Voodie were working on stuff, but Eitzel wanted to he complained that Love Songs for Patriots was largely pieced together, like with Pro Tools. Like there was a lot of like editing and layering and kind of, that was how the album was put together. And he wanted to do like a full band recording,
Yeah.
But Mooney and Pearson weren't on board for this. And so Voodie knew these guys and, knew they were good to play with or whatever, and brought them into the fold. So that's how they wound up on this album. And then further, Eitzel says that they want, and I don't know if he was just bullshitting in this interview or not, but he said they wanted to call the band MacArthur Park Music Club, because I think MacArthur Park is the neighborhood that Voodie was living in or something like that.
Yeah.
And he wanted to call it MacArthur Park Music Club. And Merge Records was like, listen, if you release it as that, like, here's the budget. If you do it as American Music Club, here's the budget. If you do it as some third thing, so they were like, all right, we'll do American Music Club. But he sort of admitted in interviews that, the band, he liked working with this incarnation of the band, but it wasn't exactly the same, as the previous incarnations of American Music Club. So, in listening to this album, like, I can definitely hear how it's different. But, I think, a good chunk of the DNA of the earlier AMC sound is also present here,
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. You do feel Voodie pretty heavily on this album, which overall I'll say that I loved. So that's interesting. So you've covered kind of Sean Hoffman and Steve Ditalo, but LA-based folks. Okay, so now I want to go into Dave Trumfio, the producer of this album. As I was doing my research on, the name did not ring a bell for me. Did it for you?
No, it did not.
Okay, so the name did not ring a bell for me, but I'm looking through all of his credits, and there are a ton of credits, right? And I'm seeing a lot of interest. I'm seeing Wilco. He worked quite a bit with Wilco, kind of post AM, pre Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, right? So I believe I'm getting that era. So he did the Billy Bragg records with them. He did Summer Teeth with them, and I'm like, oh gosh, all right. So this guy definitely has some pretty interesting records. He did My Morning Jacket record, did a Built to Spill record. But then I start seeing some of these names. He did a Granddaddy record, just like the Family Cat. Wait a second, he did a Pine Martin record, and this is all going someplace. And then I see he did a bunch of early Mart records. And I think I've mentioned to you before, J. William Hall, that I am, I haven't talked to him in many years, Aaron Espinosa from Early Mart, friend of mine from my days in LA, when I was in my band in LA. And
you had your band in LA, American Music Club was in LA. It's all coming together.
So no, but you're not going to believe this. So Aaron has a studio in LA called The Ship, and we recorded our record at Aaron's studio. Mm-hmm. And when did we record when did that happen? That happened in 2002. Okay. And Aaron, he had relatively recently opened up his studio, but he was in the process of recording while we were there. I'll never forget, because we were hanging around the studio a lot during that time. Obviously, Aaron, I remember, played me early mixes of what would become the Avenues EP, which Trumfio produced. And there were songs on that were also on, everyone down here was the full length that the Avenues EP was kind of Avenues EP was kind of promoting that or whatever. But anyway, as I'm reading all of this stuff, I remember So where Aaron's studio was, where the ship, it was in this strange building in a place called Eagle Rock, Los Angeles, right? This neighborhood called Eagle Rock that at the time was super dumpy. And it was a building that had like 3 or 4 storefronts that all looked kind of closed up. No kind of windows, but they had these doors. And one time I was outside standing on the sidewalk with Aaron smoking, because I smoked like a chimney in those days. And a guy walked out of the storefront next to ours, and Aaron's like, oh, blah, 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 introduces me to it. They're shooting the shit. And they're talking about bands and recording. And that guy was like, yeah, I can't remember what he said exactly, but he was like, yeah, I had just finished, or I was just working on a Wilco record. And I was like, oh shit, who is this guy who's working on a Wilco record? But I'm playing it cool. And anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Wilco. Everyone's worked on one of their records.
It was Dave Trumpfio. I met Dave Trumpfio while I was recording at Aaron's studio, and his studio was next door to Aaron's studio.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. Small world.
Totally small world. I had no idea until I started doing a little bit of backtracking on this guy.
Well, I did not recognize the name, but clearly he has been around and he's done a whole lot of stuff. And for a lot of bands that both you and I are into. So, what can you tell me about what does Trumpfio bring to the golden age?
Well, honestly, I had weird feelings about it. Took me many listens to really get into this record.
Okay.
When I first listened to it, my first reaction was, wow, this is there's a lot of space on this record. And it reminded me on first listen of being evocative of Everclear more than any other record. And I love Everclear. My favorite production in the AMC catalog. So that was pretty high praise. However, my perception totally changed after I listened to it more. And in the end, I felt like it was just in terms of kind of the sound of the album, reminded me much more like San Francisco. And I think it's because of the mix between what I think of as like classic AMC sounding songs, almost like Engine era sounding songs like The Stars, and then these like hyper poppy AM yacht rock sounding songs like All My Love or All the Lost Souls welcome you to San Francisco. Who are you? Does that make sense? And so I felt like it was a pretty rangy record. I don't feel like there was a consistent sound across the record.
Well, I think San Francisco as a touch point, I think is right on. Like I agree with that 100%. It feels like what they were going for and what some of the interviews that I read suggested was this sort of this AM, like 70s. I don't think the term yacht rock had quite been invented maybe when this came out.
Yeah.
But I think that they were kind of like trying to evoke that vibe a little bit, and it really comes through on the more pop, radio ready kind of songs like the ones you mentioned. But the production is super lush. It's very clean. It's reverby, but it's just very well recorded, and it sounds like kind of ornate at times, I think. But I think that they were trying to, evoke that sort of like smooth 70s kind of radio sound. But then you've got Voodie, and Voodie's bringing he's bringing the noise and the post-punk, kind of approach to the guitar. And so it kind of like walks the line, I'd say, between those things. But for me, San Francisco is the album that this feels most similar to.
Okay, so you're in agreement. Yeah, I just feel like from song to song, there's a lot of variance in the sound. I would agree. I like the way it's recorded. I'm focused on the drums. I really like the way the drums sound on here. It's a very live sound, but quite clean. I really like, I think the vocals are recorded incredibly well. I credit at least part of that to, again, I've been saying it, but the late career Eitzel, I think, developed this kind of control over his voice that really is noticeable, and you definitely hear it on this record. There are moments of like full falsetto in here that is not kind of a thing that you hear too many other places in the catalog, and it's quite controlled. And so overall, really like it. But when the songs are poppy, they are real poppy. Mm-hmm. And then when they're sparse, they're real sparse. It's just, I don't know. It's rangy in that San Francisco way.
And it's like produced,
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like a big, like they put some money and effort and time, into getting this put together. Whereas we've covered some of the Eitzel solo records that are like demos and whatever, so, you can tell like it's worthy of the, this is an official AMC record. This is not just some kind of grab bag of demos or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that I'm dissing those, because I love those albums. So
no, I think it sounds so much like AMC, especially in contrast to this Eitzel solo albums that we've just been listening to. And I really like that. I will say though, this is an album that there are a lot of moments on here where I'm like, man, I miss Bruce Caffin on this one. I just was like, God, Voodie does some things on various of the songs that I feel like fill in with that. But I loved the kind of interplay between Voodie's noisy swells and kind of soundscapes, and then Caffin's work. I did miss it a little bit here and there on this one.
For me, the biggest difference, because of course this is coming off Love Songs for Patriots. In the AMC chronology. And I think that was an album that you and I both went into kind of skeptical or whatever, and then came out like big fans of. But, I think the overriding feeling about Love Songs for Patriots is that it's this like big, angry, noisy return, even though there's counter examples to that, of course, on the album, but that's the vibe or the reputation. It's political, it's angry, it's and so this album does not continue in that vein, I would say. Like, there are elements of it on this album, but like this definitely feels like a softer, more, I guess, acoustic, kind of based album. And I think my first reaction was a little bit, not negative, but just kind of like, I don't, somehow I was expecting like the big rock AMC was going to come back or whatever for the final album. And it's like, no, it's not really that. And, and it took me a few listens to kind of come around and lock in to the vibe. But I mean, this has been true of like their entire discography, basically, the Eitzel solo catalog. Like the first couple listens, I'm always a little bit like skeptical or like, I'm not sure if I like where this is going kind of thing. And then suddenly third listen, fourth listen, fifth, like I'm like deeper and deeper and deeper into the songs, and I'm like, okay, I really like this album now, and that also, that same journey happened with this one, but this is a very distinct and different album from Love Songs for Patriots, not the least of which is because the rhythm section has been replaced, with different players, and their style if I could put it into one word, would be professional. And
yes.
and I mean that like in a positive and in a negative way. Like I feel like throughout the album their playing is perfect. It sounds good. Like everything sounds good. But it feels,
it doesn't sound strange.
Yeah, they're in the background kind of. Almost like, and I mean, that's kind of the classic job of the rhythm section, but I guess it feels a little more sterile or
although I'm going to say there's I know I would agree with that generally. I think it's a solid rhythm section, and it doesn't. Yeah, I would agree with what you're saying. However, there is at least one song on this record that I think if the drums were not played the way they are, it would not really work. And we'll get to it, but it's all the lost windows on the world. I think is such a talky song, and the way that they kind of approach the instrumentation of the song is so kind of light and airy and atmospheric. Without the drums being played in, it's not like a very super strange drum part, but it isn't kind of the most obvious drum part that you would play.
Yeah.
And it is the thing that keeps that song moving, I think. And I think the song works substantially better than it could, really just because of the playing on that song. Now, we'll get to that in a minute, but
my understanding is that these guys were like members of the band, like they helped in the development and coming up with the arrangements for these songs and stuff. So it wasn't just like hired guns brought in and lay down a beat and we'll, so I think, and we'll point that out. Like you said, like that drum part was composed, it wasn't just like laying a groove down or whatever.
Yeah, very different than some of those solo records where I think you had commented that some of it just kind of felt like they came in and laid down a track and didn't really know the song, and
right.
It's not the case at all on that song in particular. Okay, anything else we want to cover overall before we dig into the track by track?
I am ready to dig some tracks.
Let's dig some tracks. Side A, we are going to break it up into side A and side B, even though that has never been done. So you're going to see where we would break this vinyl. First song on side A
I've got a special treat for the listeners out there. At the end of this episode, probably before we do the best and worst, you will hear Jay Williams retracking of the Golden Age. I've got the perfect 10-track, two-sided vinyl of this album coming at you. End of the episode. Stay tuned.
I'm really glad about that because I had some quibbles with the. Now it's interesting. You're going to cut 3 tracks off. I'm excited to hear what those are, but I had some quibbles with the sequencing of the tracks.
Okay.
Right. I didn't go so far as to retrack it, but I'm glad you did. So before we get into that, side A, track 1, All My Love, 5 minutes and 10 seconds. Let's go. Okay, J. William Hall.
Yeah.
First thing we got to say about this one is this appears on the Eitzel solo record, Don't Be a Stranger.
Right, which in backtracking chronology has already happened, but in actual chronology happened 4 years later. Eitzel covers the song on Don't Be a Stranger as track 3 on Don't Be a Stranger.
Yeah, and I think in each of the cases where he covers his own song, you've got to ask in a studio, like in a studio record, you've got to assume that he's doing it because he wasn't happy with how it turned out on this, right? I mean, it's hard for me to.
Yeah, I don't know if Maybe, but I think it could also be the case that maybe he had worked up a solo version of this song, because he was touring those solo albums as well. So maybe it was just like, I want to do a version of this song, and he worked up a different version, and there it is. He liked it enough that he recorded it.
Yeah, I guess. I guess. I personally think it's more likely that for some reason he felt like he didn't quite get it on this one, which for me is strange. Now we're going to come back to the lyrics in a second, but we're already in the music. Let's get into it. The first thing that I thought when I heard this song start was, gosh, it reminds me of Fearless. And I think part of that is because of the drums.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, definitely. It opens the album in an almost identical, like the first 10 seconds or 15 seconds that you hear, it sounds like Fearless or like, something similar.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I liked because it really felt to me like, I started listening to this song and I'm like, all right, this is an American Music Club song. Or this is an American Music Club. It's going to be an AMC album in a way that is recognizable to AMC fans. And I felt like in terms of track sequencing, that's got to be intentional, right? You've got to kind of choose to start there's a reason they didn't start the album off with the John Birchman Victory Choir, because they'd be sending a very different signal about what the rest of that album is going to sound like. The fact that this is so AMC sounding, I think, I view as a probable choice, and I like that choice. It said something to me.
Yeah, I don't know what would have been a better opener. It definitely, the opening track sets the mood for the album, and a lot of the reviews that I read for this album, if they had anything negative to say, it was kind of like, it gets sleepy or samey, and I think that a lot of times that's based on people's impression of the first song, because when they, an album can only make one first impression, and so they're hit with that and they're like, oh, this is what the album sounds like. And it's like, of course it's not true in the entirety, but it actually reminded me, because, again, we're coming off of Love Songs for Patriots. So that was where my expectation was, coming off that was a final big epic song on that album, that the title is escaping me for why my brain is not
my brain is shit.
The devil needs you. The devil needs you.
Yeah.
It's a 7+ minute epic, goes all over the map. And so then this one comes on and it's just kind of like, it's very soft. This is a very straightforward love song. I think Eitzel later described it as his gooeyest song ever. And, and this version holds true, and there isn't a lot of, demonstrative emotional outburst in this song. It's all very soft and muted. And, I think we talked about this when we talked about Don't Be a Stranger. My interpretation of this song is that even though the lyrics are straightforward, kind of like happy, positive, love, I think it's sad because the basic message of the song is, I wish that these good times could last forever, but I know that they won't, So I think the mood of it almost reminds me a little bit of like the Wilco discography when they go from Ghost is Born, which is the big noisy guitar freak out, album, experimental, whatever. Like, think of that as like Love Songs for Patriots. And then they open Sky Blue Sky with this, very gentle, either way. And, and I felt like the same kind of dynamic here. Like, we're stepping off of the big noisy album and we're now entering this like smoother, softer, lovely, but like a
more downbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's definitely a reflective tone. Now, you dug into the lyrics a little bit. I don't think we have to cover the lyrics completely on this one because we have already talked about them. But am I incorrect in saying that there is a second verse here that is not present on the Don't Be a Stranger version?
Yeah, there's some lyrical differences. Like, so the Don't Be a Stranger version is like more refined. You know, like he changed the lyrics from this version going forward. One of the big differences between the two versions is, and I can't, hold on, I'm going to pull it up here. On this version, he says, in the chorus, he says, if I can give you all my love, all my love. In the Don't Be a Stranger, it's if I can't give you all my love, all my love. So he switches from can to can't, which I think subtly like alters the meaning a little bit. But anyway.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't catch that. I would say, so I listened to both of them. The Don't Be a Stranger version, I believe, is slower actually, but it struck me as much more poppy. Although this one was a little bit more, just the tempo was a little bit faster, it just felt more kind of spacious and stark. And I think Eitzel's vocals on this one were great and emotive and controlled. There's that interesting falsetto that he does in the chorus when he hits All My Love. That's, I think, very lovely. And gosh, this is like you hear Voodie on this and you're like, fuck yeah, Voodie's back. It just gives it that, I don't know how to describe it, but little bit of something that Voodie brings to the band that's a little dirty, a little weird, a little off kilter, but really nice. I just love to hear that on the first track. Really, I have to say, I liked this. You're gonna naturally, I think, compare the two versions. I like this version better.
Yeah, I think this version is the superior version. The Don't Be a Stranger one is more of the cocktail bar.
Yeah,
kind of the slightly jazzy,
it's got that
cocktail bar kind of thing. And I mean, I think it's also good. Like I liked it when we listened to it, but I do think that this version I prefer because it has that, it evokes the classic AMC soundscape. Soundscaptual. Remember that that term that was coined? Yeah. So my only thought is opening song on the album, 5 minutes and 10 seconds.
Yeah, longish.
And I think he builds to the climactic, oh my love, like he builds to that like twice or 3 times.
I think it's not 3 times. I think it's just twice. That could be wrong, but I think that first chorus, he doesn't hit the high All My Love. He hits the lower All My Love.
And this song taps in a little bit to the Eitzel, like the Streisand kind of kind of feeling. And I feel like you get to that climactic point, there's one climax, just one.
You only go.
That's all
you only get one
you
chance.
Just get one.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I think it is an interesting opener on the record. I can see some of the points that you're making here. But what I liked about it as an opener of a record is it sets a tone, and it's an AMC-like tone, right? We've talked a lot about how AMC, I think, tended to, not always, but I think tended to open with pretty sparse, low-key songs, and I think this more or less fits that mold.
Right.
All right, are you ready to move on to the John Birchman Victory Choir?
Let's.
Okay, let's do it. 2 minutes and 52 seconds. Let's go.
Wake up. Doesn't matter what you
Okay, J. William Hall, I know that you are a Google researcher par excellence. Mm-hmm. However, I want to throw out my humble attempt at trying to figure out who the hell is John Birchman and what is his victory choir. So I looked around. The only thing I could find was that John Birchman's, with an S on the end, was a Belgian saint. Saint. And he was a Jesuit saint, and a Belgian. and the only other thing, as I was kind of combing, I was trying to figure out what he healed. One of his final kind of miracle was healing a woman, but she got out of bed and then went on to, I think, be a nun. But that felt a little odd to me. And then I was like, well, could there be another Eitzel connection? I know that Eitzel spent some amount of time living in Chicago, and there is a St. John Birchman's church thing in Logan Square, which easily could have been where he lived, because it's kind of a, north side, little bit of an artsy neighborhood.
Sure.
Or at least that's, what it used to be back in the olden days. Right. So that's the best that I came up with. I'm curious to know if you've bested me once again, J. William Hall, or if that stands.
I have not bested you. You filled in a few gaps that I have, because I also did my my Google research, and I found the same John Birchman's. He's this, he was a Belgian Jesuit student, a bright young man who in the 1600s was, very into the Jesuit service or whatnot, and he died very young, very suddenly. But everybody just loved him to death. He just seemed like he was just this great dude. Everybody loved him. And so they, what do? They made him a saint, or I don't know how they do it. But anyway, flash forward 250 years later. Civil War era in Louisiana. The deep South. And there was a girl who was sick, and she was so sick that she was praying, and she claims that John Birchman's came to her and healed her, basically. And that was the basis through which the church canonized him, or whatever. Because they claimed that his spirit came to her and healed her. So what is a victory choir? This is the piece that I have not quite got, because this is the other mystery about this song. On the album itself, as originally released, it's called the John Birchman Victory Choir. No S on the end, but whatever.
Correct.
So on the version that's on Bandcamp now, that is the only, or is the best. Hey, listeners, if you're out there and you don't own this album, go to the American Music Club Bandcamp page, buy it. They get a bigger cut of the money than anywhere else on the market. So do it. But it's called the Victory Choir. No John Birchman.
Oh, really?
Why did they change the title of it? I saw that there are these John Birchman's churches around the country in different cities. And so in my mind, I was thinking, well, maybe they have a choir at one of these churches, and Eitzel saw them, and that's what this song is about. The Chicago one would be my best guess, because we know that he spent time there.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that where I landed in the end with this reference is the lyrics, as I read them, seem to be about the encouragement. This is what I pictured. Someone stuck in bed with depression and a hangover, and just they don't want to do it anymore. And I pictured, this may have been influenced by my image of Eitzel in an apartment close to this church or whatever in Logan Square, like with bells or noise or whatever it is. And it is the thing that kind of convinces him morning after morning to get up and get out there. And this song is kind of just like John Birchman's. Maybe it's a reference to the saint whose final miracle was healing a woman so that she could get out of bed and then go on and do her thing. Maybe that's what the reference is. But that's basically what I got from the song. It's kind of a song about you get up despite the hangover, despite everything else, and you go. And that's what you got to do. That's kind of what I got here.
That's kind of what I got as well. It seemed like sort of almost like a straightforward, like, I saw this choir performed and they're great and they're happy and positive and they look on the bright side of life, and I think that's great. That's basically the message that I got from this song, which is, an unusually chipper message from a Mark Eitzel penned lyric.
Yeah, and while we're talking about unusual, why don't we go on to the music? Because it is a strange second track on the record, I think. Yeah. It has this kind of 1950s slick country. And I don't have a musician or a band I can reference, but it's almost like a Glenn Campbell-y, but probably earlier than Glenn Campbell, but exceedingly slick, a little country twinged, these kind of like interesting vocal harmonies that are very upfront.
You could almost hear it performed like on the Grand Ole Opry or something, from old country times. Like it definitely pulls in that influence. It as far as like AMC references, it's another waltz. It reminds me of like Gary's song. It's kind of like in that kind of general genre, but it gets a little swingier, I think, like as it goes along. But yeah, the vocals, like big stacked harmony vocals. And and I don't know if this is Hoffman and Diddlow. I assumed it was for some reason. There's an additional singer credited on this track, Layla Actigan.
Yeah, who was in some kind of a musical project duo with Sean Hoffman, is it Sean? With Sean Hoffman.
But yeah, they've got great big harmonies going, and I think it's effective. I mean, this is definitely, it is in the Gary song kind of spirit a little bit, but it's its own thing, and it definitely stands in contrast to anything else on the album.
Yeah, it does. I just think it's a jarring second track. I would have preferred to see this at like track 5 or something like that.
Oh, see, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind
it.
All
right. Well, listen, I'm looking forward to seeing your retrack. Yeah, I mean, listen, I very slick. It's very slick. The vocals in particular are very slick. Didn't dislike it, but I do think it's kind of a strange one up front. And normally what I'd expect here, and just to kind of go into that, for AMC, kind of a downbeat tune to start, and then a pop rocker, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, I mean, this is a curveball. Like, I mean,
it is a curveball. There's no doubting it.
AMC throws curveballs. They
do.
Their strength and their weakness commercially, because you can't pigeonhole them into one particular sound or style. And so
yeah, I know.
And those were the last words J. William Hall ever said.
Well, listen, I think we're in agreement, but it's time now for us to get into the third track, Decibels and Little Pills. 5 minutes and 21 seconds.
Well, hold on. You're
no.
So quick to
the train has left the station. I
just want to say my favorite part of the John Birchman Victory Choir song is when it gets to the part where he says, "It doesn't matter what you do," and it goes into this swoony kind of part, and there's almost this like Hawaiian slide guitar that sort of appears in the background. I think it's a sneakily just like the production is really good. So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it is an, it's not unusual for AMC to throw one of these like oddballs on one or two of these oddballs on their records. This one just, I didn't dislike it. I just felt like it was jarring to be so upfront. But listen, right. we've said that's enough. I'm cutting on. I'm calling time on this one.
I'm done.
We're going to move on to Decibels and Little Pills. 5 minutes and 21 seconds. Let's go.
And time is a current that only flows from warm hands to warm. No one here is going to say.
Okay, let's start with the lyrics. Now, this one was interesting. My impression from these lyrics is that it's about a woman who Eitzel knows, or who he's kind of writing all of these lyrics about. He's an observer of this woman's behavior. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to just kind of put it out there. The sense that I get is he feels like she's a little bit of a floozy. She's out there finding people at bars and going home with them, and she's trying to find salvation in rock shows and just being wild and partying and doing all the stuff. And he's singing this with really no affection for her, which I think is a little bit of a change for Eitzel, right? Like, I think you're it's much more common to find Eitzel as like the narrator or author of lyrics to have affection for kind of the social outcast, in particular women and women that he'd find in bars, right? But I don't really get a sense of much affection in this one.
I don't entirely agree. Like, I don't know if affection is the right word, but it's almost like this is sort of like a warning, like he's just sort of like painting a picture of somebody who's headed down a bad path, maybe, and
yeah.
Just their behavior is not making them look good in public, like they're kind of embarrassing themselves in public.
Yeah.
Like that sort of was, so, I mean, I don't know that he's like looking at her with disdain exactly. It's more of just like concern / like cringe.
Yeah. I think there's definitely cringe. I don't know if it's disdain, but I mean, listen, there's this like, it's not your scene and everyone is mean. Their eyes, they say, I don't want to know. And how sad is that? Your rebel cowboy hat. All it says is you're tonight's casualty. And the crowd is, I don't know. Well, I think if there is affection in here, it is coming through in an earnest warning in the chorus. No one here is going to save you.
So, you mentioned the reference to the cowboy hat. I have to admit, for some reason, the picture this conjures in my head is a pop culture reference from probably back in this era that I have never even actually seen. Coyote Ugly.
Okay. Well, I guess we know what you're going to be doing
like
tonight.
Cowboy chicks dancing on the bar. Isn't that kind of like?
I have not ever seen the movie Cowboy Ugly or Coyote Ugly, but I have been to there was in the wake of either that movie was made about an actual place or they came out with actual places like that after the movie. But I was at one of them in Las Vegas one time. Okay, so it's like girls and like hot girls in kind of cowboy hats dancing on a bar. Basically.
Yeah, like Daisy Duke, whatever, like dancing. And that is the scene for whatever reason that is like conjuring in my head. But part of it is also that the song as it gets going, like it starts with acoustic. Like that's the one thing about this album that I think probably if reviewers brushed it off, it was because a lot of the songs start the same. Like a lot of the songs on this album start with Eitzel acoustic finger picking. you know, in kind of a similar style, like the Nick Drake sort of style. And, you know, but then once the song kind of gets going and the arrangement kicks in and whatever, like each song is, you know, is distinct and different. And this one has this kind of, you know, this is a beat that I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think Tim Mooney would have played this beat. It's like this shuffly, like
it is
like
it's a shuffly, almost
train.
What they would call, I believe, in the 1950s in Britain, a skiffle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is kind of a skiffle beat. Yeah.
And it's similar to Royal Cafe in that way. But I would agree it isn't really played in the way that I think, you know, other AMC drummers would play it. But I really like the lyrics were a little
yeah.
No, you've said enough.
I haven't said anything about this one.
No, I think the lyrics aside, I actually really like the music of this one. I like it's a mid-tempo to up-tempo, but it's not a full-on rocker. Yeah. So it kind of lifts us up a little bit from that first track. I think the chorus is just so strong and very, very much an earworm, right?
Yeah. This one stuck with me, the chorus in particular, and it's got some, you know, I assume Voodie playing some kind of country western guitar licks here and there, like going into different sections of the song. So it is a little bit of a, you know, it's a little bit of a toss back to earlier AMC, I suppose. You know, the beat reminds me of, have you ever heard of the Canadian songsmith Bruce Cockburn?
I have not.
He has a great song called Night Train that has this, like, it has that shuffling beat, which, you know, it sounds like a train, like, you know, hurtling down the tracks kind of. But, you know, this is a very, you know, we like that beat. That beat works for this song. You know, it's the backbone of this song, but it also sounds very, not generic, but just like, it sounds like a trained drummer. Doing a trained, you know, drum part. It's not just like a dude jamming, you know. And I just think that is also part of like what makes this album unique in the AMC discography is you know, these just kind of like, I mean, these guys aren't session guys as far as we can tell, like they're, you know, playing on everyone's sessions, but they're just very professional, you know. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the one thing that you had brought up Voodie in here. The track one, this track again, I'm just like, God damn, I miss Voodie. It is such a Voodie guitar part throughout, and there is a solo. There's a full-on guitar solo in here. And my note on this, as I was listening, you know, the 10th or 11th listen when I'm finally doing my notes on it, I just wrote, I love guitar solos. I had kind of forgotten that because there was like an era where like every song had to have a guitar solo in it. Right. And it kind of got really annoying. You know, you're just like, fuck, like here's the guitar solo. Let's just like get through this. But man, I really love a guitar solo in here. And I don't know. I just like,
well, it helps who's playing it, you know, because Voodie's guitar solos aren't like your run of the mill hard rock, wanky, you know, heavy metal, you know, or whatever. Like he does his own thing, and he comes at it from this very angular, kind of more post-punk, you know, art rock kind of direction. So even though you're hearing the country licks, they're interspersed with some just like noisy kind of weird stuff. And that's what gives, you know, that's what gave AMC its edge, you know. I mean,
totally.
Eitzel's lyrics are edgy for sure, but like, you know, sometimes if they're accused of, you know, straying too far into easy listening or adult contemporary territory, like, I mean, Voodie will bring you right back, you know. And I think like on this album, that's his biggest role, you know, like as the album goes on.
Yeah, I mean, my Voodie note on here is like, Voodie guitars again, just so nice. It's a crime he was backgrounded on Mercury. This solo, I love rock guitar solos. I couldn't agree with you more. I think there is some magic between the kind of unusual but frequently incredibly poppy and memorable melodies that Eitzel writes, these lyrics that are really powerful and interesting and unusual, and then Voodie introducing this kind of dirty, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it, because I wouldn't say that it's just dirty. It's not like a dirty, crunchy, always distorted. It's more of an atmospheric kind of it's just unexpected. It's a very unexpected texture that he always introduces to the songs.
I mean, it's wild, like he's got a wildness to him that in his playing, whereas, Hoffman and Diddelo do not have a wildness to their playing, like at least on this album, from what I could hear, like they're very steady and they're just like, their job is to lay the foundation, and Eitzel does his thing over here and Voodie's doing his thing over here, and, nothing wrong with that. But I feel like maybe when it was Danny and Tim, the feel was a little different. Like it almost felt like the whole band was a little wild at times, or could have their moments where, you just weren't sure if it was going to go off the rails, and I think with these guys, it feels like, oh no, it's not going to go off the rails, and I mean, honestly, we'll get into it, but like some of these solos on this album from Voodie are the wildest guitar solos that he's laid down for ANC.
Yeah. But it is definitely an album with many guitar solos, right? Like this is probably the most pure solos from Voodie that appear on any AMC record.
I'd agree. Yeah.
Really interesting. All right, are you ready to move on to the next tracks, The Sleeping Beauty?
Yes.
Okay, The Sleeping Beauty, 3 minutes and 58 seconds. Let's give it a listen.
I like to get there safe. I like to get my sleep. I'm selfish with my time, like it was something I could keep. Oh, but you know the truth, it never helped you much. It only beat its drum. It woke Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, it woke her up tonight.
All right, J. William Hall, I've got to ask the question here. Is this a Kathleen song?
Well, this is a song that we have heard before, and this is a song that if super fans of Eitzel had heard before, because he did a version of this on the 2005 release, Candy Ass.
Okay. All right. You know what? I didn't even notice that. I cannot, I can't believe that I didn't notice it. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that Candy Ass. Now, did he call it the same thing?
Yes. He did. And it's actually, it's not, well, it is different. I mean, this version is more produced and, a full band version. And that version is kind of his just acoustic part over kind of a synthesizer, kind of thing. But yes, I definitely think it's a Kathleen song. I think it's, him visiting her. 'Cause I think we covered at some point she was in Atlanta, I want to say.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this was written in the wake of seeing her there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Shame on me. I knew that when I read these lyrics, when I listened to the song, I recognized the line that I loved. I'm selfish with my time, like it was something I could keep, which I just think is a great Eitzel, totally Eitzlerian lyric. Beautiful, evocative. But I think these are great lyrics across the board. But now that sweetness is like a mistake. I grieve. It only poisons my life, becomes a prison I never want to leave. I mean, it really is. When I was kind of like going through this one again, I was like, gosh, this is a really interesting perspective on his relationship with Kathleen, if indeed that's what it's about, that I feel like I haven't quite heard before, where he really kind of, in some ways, laments the fact that he had this incredibly formative relationship with her, and that somehow cast a shadow over every subsequent relationship he's had in a meaningful way. I'm going to have to go back and listen to the Candy Ass version of this. I don't remember it, so I'm guessing it didn't really move me very much. But I have to say, I love this song on here.
Yeah, I mean, this version is superior, but if you listen to the earlier one, this one sounds like, they took that one and built a full band version around it, basically. Not the same recording, but just like the same general approach. So, this song had been around for a few years, I guess, prior to them recording this album. The version that they have here is very lush. It's got that swooniness to it that I think a lot of the songs on this album have. Just a great recording.
Yeah. I mean, the bridge really struck me. I tend to love it. I've realized that after backtracking AMC and Eitzel, I really love it when he writes a kind of a proper bridge, and I love the bridge in this song. And again, Voodie brings so much to the equation here. Really makes it feel. He really does that thing that, for me, lifts Eitzel as fundamentally a solo singer. I don't want to say solo singer, but like as a singer-songwriter, I think there's just some dynamic that he gets about Eitzel that he is missing from the solo records mostly.
Yeah, I don't know that it's even that it's missing exactly, because it's like Eitzel has gone from Voodie as his primary collaborator, say, like the person who's building the soundscapes, around him, started with Voodie, and then Voodie and Bruce Caffin, doing that kind of role of the atmosphere around him. And then from solo album to solo album, he's kind of like hitched his wagon to a different collaborator, in some ways. And I just think each one has been unique and different and has had pros and cons to it. But it is refreshing to get back to Voodie.
I definitely, I've this probably, almost every track so far I've commented about how much I like Voodie's work on this record. I really think that he shines here. I also one of my notes on this one was, man, I wish Caffin was on this one. I think it would have just taken it from an extremely strong track to, a catalog, one of the top songs in the entire catalog.
Whoa.
Yeah, I loved it. This one, it just, every time I listened to this record, this one got under my skin more and more, and it just really, really worked for me, which is why I'm so surprised that I just completely spaced on the fact that it was on Candy Ass.
Well,
I'm going to have to go back to the Candy Ass episode and listen to what I said about it.
Yeah. Because I think Candy Ass was not your favorite Eitzel solo project.
Yeah, I would say that's absolutely right. I think it was one of my least favorite Eitzel solo projects.
It had more of the electronic-y kind of stuff
on
it. More demo kind of quality recordings. But I mean, that version, you can, it's not, it set the foundation or set the blueprint for the approach to the song, but the band on this version elevates the material.
Yep. Agreed. Okay, should we move on to the stars?
Yes.
Okay, the stars, 5 minutes and 17 seconds. Let's go.
Is someone to watch over us while we sleep? You found him lying on the wall.
Okay, J. William Hall, what about these lyrics?
So, okay, this is another song that we have heard before. Listeners at the time of this album would not generally have heard this one unless they had seen him live, but we were familiar with the version that closes out the Mark Eitzel live solo acoustic 2005 to 2007. This is described as a bonus track on that collection, and it is a solo version of this song where he has 2 or 3 people just providing this like very subtle choir over the chorus. And I remember I loved it. Like, I thought it was it might have been my favorite song on that collection.
Yeah, agreed.
Just, different than anything else. And, so I was really looking forward to hearing this one. And I think when I first heard it, like when it opens or whatever, like I was like, I don't know, but I've come around. I love this version. This one, I mean, obviously the thing about this song, the drama, is the contrast between, the really like airy kind of like, atmospheric verses, and then just the super heavy hit of the big chords and everything at the chorus. So it's kind of an epic song. The thing that Eitzel says when he introduces this song on that live collection, all he says is, "This is about a dream I had." And then they go into the song. And the lyrics are significantly different on that live solo acoustic version versus this version on the album. There's some similarities, but it's significantly rewritten or overhauled for the AMC version here. So all I have to go on is that this is about a dream, and I find it really difficult to come to some conclusion about what it's about exactly. But there are hints of, there's like celestial imagery, obviously, it being called the stars, and there's this, it's almost set up like a short story, like there's a him and there's a me, and it hints at something profound, but I can't tell you what it is. I don't know, but I love it.
Yeah. I mean, lyrically, I found it to be pretty opaque. It's very dreamy. It seems to paint a picture of a woman finding a man on the side of a road. I imagined it to be he's injured somehow, and she's essentially cradling him at the side of the road while they're looking up at a night sky and perhaps waiting for help or whatever. But that's kind of the image that I had. But then there's
works. Yeah.
But then there's this third verse that really confounds that whole view of it, right? It has really nothing to do with any of that stuff. But it's I don't dislike the lyrics. I just they're impressionistic, I guess.
Yes. I think dreamlike, impressionistic. Yes.
Yeah. So the music, though, I really like everything that you said about it. I tend to agree. I also like the solo version of this song quite a bit, but this song really struck me, and you can tell me if you disagree. This struck me as a real throwback to a very old AMC sound. It reminded me of like Pale Skinny Girl.
Yeah, I think definitely that era, that more like Engine California type of era, like just the way the song is structured, actually, what was the one bonus track on Restless Stranger? Maybe it was the track Restless Stranger. Or no, it wasn't the track Restless Stranger. Oh, geez. Anyway, it's one of the bonus tracks from that album where it's like these verses that are these kind of airy, floaty. I don't even think they're drums. And then it like builds into this giant, noisy kind of chorus. And this one isn't quite like that because I feel like these choruses hit harder. And there's just some really cool chord changes, I guess, in the chorus of this song, like unexpected. You know, it takes some really like dramatic big chord changes that kind of hit you like hard. It takes the song in a place that you don't expect it to go, at least on first listen for me. You know, I really like it. I think that this is a fine AMC moment.
Yeah. Well, it is a fine AMC moment, and I think, J. William Hall, this is where we're going to break it off.
What?
Right here.
No.
Yeah. I think we're going to do... Now, we can...
This is only 5 tracks into a 13-track album.
Okay, so you think that this is not the appropriate place to flip the side?
We're not talking about Jay Williams' revised track list, are we?
No, we're not. We're not, but... I feel like, all right, so why don't we, after this one, we'll flip the side. How about that?
Yes, that's what I would say. Yes.
Okay. All right, so then we're going to end it with a strangely upbeat tune, an ode to the city by the bay. No, I'm not talking about When the Lights Go Down in the City by Journey.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm talking about All the Lost Souls welcome you to San Francisco. 2 minutes and 43 seconds. Let's go.
Welcome you to San Francisco. It's a city that was built by fire trucks and skeletons who grin and grin. Pimps and thieves who can't believe their luck. Who were only holy when they sin. Now I came looking for the party, so come on, Marty.
Okay, so J. William Hall, I think the lyrics on this are fairly straightforward. I think it is a romantic, a reminiscent look back by Eitzel. But you're going to say you found some article. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, yes. But before I even get to that, you realize that we've heard this song before as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to.
Yeah. Why don't you just now close the loop on it? Where did we hear it?
We heard it on the Mark Eitzel solo live solo acoustic 2005 to 2007 collection, which was not released as far as I can tell until 2021 or something. So
yeah.
You know,
so he'd been playing this live.
Yeah, he'd been playing it live solo. He had a solo acoustic version. Anyway.
Yeah. But, you know, this, I think lyrically, at least my take, pretty uncomplicated. And I think this is really Eitzel looking back at a time in San Francisco when it was filled with misfits and miscreants and young people that were not dissimilar to Eitzel who were going there to find their fortune, find fun, find, you know, similar people. And there are some references in these lyrics where that era of San Francisco is going to go away. That is not going to be the San Francisco that still exists today. But I don't, I think it's fairly straight. At least my read was it's a fairly straightforward picture of San Francisco circa 1990.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And we talked about these lyrics when we covered the solo acoustic album. You know, it's a love letter to the city, but it's also it's a lot of like sketchy people.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, and, you know, and I think some of the lyric changes that he had between that solo acoustic version and this one kind of softened the view of San Francisco a little bit. You know, but he talks about in the earlier one, he's like, when I was 22, I came here to retire. And I think like some of those lines are no longer there. But the one thing that I think is interesting about this song on this album is that there was a video made for this song. Did you know that?
I did not know that. No, I did not know that.
There's an official music video, and it's starring the distinctive character actress Grace Zabriskie, who is better known as Laura Palmer's mother on Twin Peaks.
Oh, wow.
And apparently her and Eitzel are friends or something. It sounded like in some article I saw. But you should look it up. It's on YouTube.
Excellent.
All the Lost Souls, whatever. And it's a very AMC style video because the band does appear in it, but they don't, not in like, they're miming for the camera, like pretending they're, whatever. You just go check it out. Go check it out, people, on the YouTubes. But yes, this is definitely the sort of big pop moment, I would say, of the album. It reminded me, this one reminds me of the San Francisco album. This is very West Coast 70s California rock, soft rock. Kind of sound. It's got the soul organ. It's got these big stacked harmonies. It's a big pop moment, but it's not like cheesy. Like it's got a little edge to it because some of the lyrics like paint a little bit of a grimy picture.
Yeah, this is in my opinion, this is them really going pure yacht rock. Those background vocals in here, really it has an Ambrosia feel. Of course, you remember Ambrosia, right?
Oh, of course.
You're the biggest part of me, how much I feel, right? Mm-hmm. Like classic kind of early 70s Los Angeles, smooth as butter yacht rock. And it really does go for this. You get that like "Come on Marty" line with the horn breaks and everything. Really a very distinct style of song for the band. The bridge struck me as a little strange. Overall, I just kind of feel like this version, my opinion, I think this is good. I think it's well executed. I don't mind this song. I don't like it on this record. I think it sticks out weirdly. It too weirdly, in my opinion.
Interesting. See, now, I think one of the ongoing differences between you and I in our AMC fandom is that I tend to be drawn to eclecticism. Like I like when there's like different styles of all the different angles of the AMC diamond are on display. And I think you like more uniformity. You like it when they stick with a mood and kind of sustain it for
I do. I like it when they stick with a mood, they paint with certain colors across an entire album. It doesn't bother me when they diverge from song to song, right? Like the Crab Walk doesn't bother me because I feel like overall they're painting with the same palette as the rest of the songs on the record. So while it's a very different tonal song, it feels like it kind of fits with the rest of that album. And this, I just feel like is too jarring a change. Now, it isn't alone in this style on this album, which is, I think, one of the kind of confounding things for me about this album. It feels like there are maybe, 2 or 3 palettes that they kind of use across this album. So it's very difficult for me to kind of think about where they are as a band at this moment in time, which again is something that I really like about listening to a band from one album to the next. I like to kind of think about an album as this is where the band was aesthetically at that moment in time, and then see where they are in the next moment in time. We have talked about this before, but it's definitely just a little quirk and oddball thing about how I listen to them, I guess.
Yeah, I think of this as almost the equivalent of like "Can You Help Me" on San Francisco.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's not even as bright and pop as that song was, but for this album I feel like this is kind of like this slots into that spot, like the big pop radio friendly moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, interesting. I'll accept that and I'll consider it. And we will have an opportunity to discuss this further when? Next week when we come back and cover side B.
That's right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Next, because there are other songs that kind of fit into this style, and we're going to dig into them. But until then, J. William Hall, you know exactly what everyone needs to do. They need to email backtrackingrocksrox@gmail.com. They need to Instagram. They need to Twitter. Backtracking Rocks, ROX. Those are the usernames. YouTube. Go watch all of the podcasts on YouTube. It's Backtracking Rocks, ROX. That's it. Reddit. Go to the American Music Club subreddit and hang out.
Yeah, I feel like there's been an uptick on the subreddit recently of folks uploading, here's my signed copy of Klamath that I got on a tour. Here's a t-shirt I got. I think that stuff's great.
Yeah, agreed. I love it. I love to see it. It is so fun to see the little gems that all of you have in your collections. So definitely keep it up. So anyway, until then, J. William Hall, thank you as always. Just thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.